Hello there. Where defence of the nation is concerned, money is not enough. The calls for the UK to increase its defence spending have been growing. For example, in a Telegraph article, Tory MP and former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has called for the UK defence spending to increase from 2% to 4% of GDP over the next decade to match the percentage levels of US defence spending. And he says that we must rise to the challenge by rediscovering that peace comes from strength, not luck. But politicians will usually only make these pronouncements when they are sure that the public is already at that point and will agree with them. So one assumes he's been getting quite a few letters from constituents about this subject. Or am I just being a cynic? Anyway, Hunt also says that the only route to this extra defence spending is to pour extra money into research and development via the country's top 4 universities to boost the UK economy, Silicon Valley style, from which he thinks defence spending uplifts will surely follow. But defending a nation is more than just putting extra money into a UK Silicon Valley and hoping it generates the cash for us to defend ourselves with. And doubling our defence spending in today's political climate would not double the number of service personnel, ships, tanks and fighter planes. No, but it would quadruple the number of civil servants and diversity officers working within the Defence Department, as well as graphic designers who would ensure that the new camouflage pattern had a lot more rainbow colours in it. And at the first hint of a Labour-style government, much of the extra would be diverted to things like foreign aid and social programmes. Anyway, I digress. One of the reasons we've been caught short by the Russia-Ukraine war is because those who wish to leave us defenceless have claimed that we would have decades to identify and match an emerging threat and rearm. That lie has now been exposed. The threat was building right in front of us and we did nothing. In fact, we reduced our military capabilities over decades in the face of it. The next fallacy is that we can rely on like-minded countries to come to our aid, and even sign contracts with them to do so. Just ask Ukraine how that one's panning out right now. And when the Falklands was invaded, the UK had to go it alone. Clubbing together is in reality socialising your defences. You are relying on everyone else to be paying in, and to cough up the goods when the brown stuff hits the rotating ventilator. And it's only at that final point when you find out the truth. Just a few weeks ago, the commander of the German army was telling us he had nothing to offer. Their defence cupboard was bare, he said. In the final analysis, there is only one country you can rely on to have your nation's interests at heart, and that is your own nation. That's where the buck stops. Now, modern warfare isn't about a few troops from each side on a battlefield, with whoever wins the engagement taking the spoils. And it's not something that's always fought over there, as we've become accustomed to. No, we should also be ready to defend our own shores too, something the English Channel red carpet has shown we lack. Then there's our territorial waters, oil and gas, as well as pipelines and cables. And remember, modern war is total war. Total national commitment. People, politics and industry. And with people, as they say, and as the Ukrainians are showing, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. The people have to believe in their nation and their way of life, and that it is worth fighting and maybe ultimately dying for. And that for the UK is a whole other video right now. And when operating abroad, we have to know that the cause is just. And there needs to be a large number of personnel in the armed forces, and a large number of well-trained reserve forces too. You can't just hope to train everyone over a weekend. All of this means more UK real estate given over to defence for operations, training and accommodation. Then you need a robust defence sector that can produce cutting-edge weaponry, and the MOD has to buy that weaponry to not only keep the process going, but to make the firms involved profitable enough to not need to sell the latest stuff abroad to our potential enemies. You also need a large, light and heavy manufacturing base that can be quickly repurposed to produce all the modern weapons, tanks and ships and aircraft you need. Without that, your defences are limited to what you can scrounge off of other nations, if they feel minded to help you. Because relying on a limited stockpile won't last long. Look at Ukraine right now. Without resupplies from the West, they would not have the latest weaponry to hold the Russians back. In fact, they would be down to Ursula von der Leyen's German broomsticks that she gave her army to practice with instead of assault rifles. And we live on an island and would rely on vulnerable shipping for that sort of thing. You also need your own military-grade satellite system for both comms and navigation. Relying on other people's is a dodgy gamble. You need aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines for power projection, and you need to ensure you have the facility to successfully fight for air supremacy. Not just air superiority, but total air supremacy in any theatre you enter. And there's loads more, like nuclear, biological and chemical defence, better known as NBCD, communications, intelligence, cyber warfare, etc, etc, etc. And don't forget energy and food security. But while I'm talking about all of that, the real experts will be talking about logistics, 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 which is where all campaigns are won or lost. And logistics is heavy and expensive. And it also helps if the national debt isn't sky high. So no, defence of the nation is not just about a few more quid. All of the above will take a massive political will to follow through on. True defence is strength in depth, with both the national and political will to see it through, and then maintain a rock-solid defence roof even while the sun of peace shines down on us. And that's the really difficult bit. As soon as it looks safe again, defence will drop down the political agenda to once again be something you call on when you want a few sandbags filled during a storm or to sort out a pandemic logistics problem, etc. Just think, a few weeks ago you would have been expecting politicians to be talking now about making the UK pandemic proof, with national stockpiles of PPE and all the rest of it. Now it's just a footnote in history. And if the Ukraine crisis goes on for much longer, the cost of living crisis can only deepen, and by the end of the year, as winter approaches, we could be squabbling over both heating and eating here in the UK.